did you ever feel like a victim? And your answer really just inspired me.
So you kind of hit on a good point there. It was a freak accident. And because it was a freak accident, I was never mad at anybody. There was never anyone to be mad at. And so for that reason, I never felt like a victim. But last year, I was done being the victim.
Welcome to the 100-Year Lifestyle Podcast, dedicated to you and your loved ones living at 100% for 100 years and beyond. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Plasker.
Welcome, everybody, to the 100-Year Lifestyle Podcast. And wow, we are transforming health and longevity consciousness worldwide so that you and your loved ones can live at 100% for 100 years and beyond. And for those second chancers out there, and those of you that know people that need a second chance, that are in the middle of a second chance, if you know somebody close to you that is in the middle of a second chance or is having a second chance or got a third chance, we have a story for you today that is mind-boggling. And so we are here with Austin Surmont. And the title of this, Austin, is Austin Runs a Mile, Says F You to Dying. Wow. So glad you're here. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me be here, Dr. P.
Yeah. So your story is a very unusual story. It's a 1 in a million story. Why don't you go ahead and tell us, and you're 28 years old now, and this was 10 years ago, correct, that it started, that your story, your life changed forever. Talk to us about what happened.
So quick backstory. I'm the oldest of 5 boys. We were 5 very rambunctious athletic boys.
We call them the Surmonts, by the way.
And so I grew up playing sports my whole life, doubled up on multiple sports in different seasons. When I graduated high school, I got the opportunity to go on a mission trip to Rwanda. My aunt was a missionary there. And so I went to Rwanda for 5 weeks to set up soccer tournaments for street kids and orphans.
Nice.
And it was an incredible trip. You learn how many things that here in the United States we take for granted: running water, electricity, all those kind of things you don't even think about.
Soccer fields.
Soccer fields, yeah. Cleats on your feet that actually fit, yeah. And so when I got back, it was a life-changing trip, to say the least. And when I got back, I had about 3 weeks until my freshman year of college started. My friends were going away to their schools, so I didn't really have anything to do because I was staying home. For the first 2 years was my plan, so that I could spend some more time with my little brothers.
Nice.
Watch them play soccer and go through school and help them out. And so I got a job, a temporary job, at the seminary downtown in Detroit. They had just had a fire in it, and it hadn't been cleaned since they had converted from candles to electricity. So it was perfect time to clean this church on the inside. And I came in tail end of the project. I was glorified cleanup crew. I just swept all of the material back into piles for them to put in hoppers so that they could sandblast the inside of this church.
And I bet, knowing you, you took a lot of pride in your work too, because
I did.
You're that kind of guy.
I did. I was brought up to be a workhorse, so I didn't take breaks. I caught up on my work when everyone else took breaks.
Paying attention to details,
Absolutely.
All those things. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So what happened?
So about 10 days, about a week after I started the job, which was 3 days after I got back, I started using a shop vac instead of a broom because we needed to cut down on the dust inside the building. The shop vac was the standard shop vac you would see at a Lowe's or Home Depot.
Okay.
But the hose came in at a slight angle as opposed to being straight in the center, so that it would cut down on costs for the contractors. It would keep the filter cleaner longer. And I was using the shop vac, just sweeping up, doing my job. Same thing I had been doing, just using a vacuum instead of a broom.
Mm-hmm.
And I was getting these little shocks in my hand. I was wearing rubber gloves, getting these little shocks in my hand. Didn't think anything of it. It's the same kind of shock that you would get when you're walking across carpet and your bare feet, you touch your door handle.
Okay.
Don't even think about it. And so I was getting these shocks and just minding my own business, doing my work. And all of a sudden, I was thrown back 10 feet. I didn't know why. I didn't know what had happened. Turns out that the material that I was picking up in the shop vac was a sponge material. It was a polymer, and it was cycling in a vortex around a plastic vacuum that had a big metal handle on the back so that you could push it around. It built up static electricity in that handle until it had to go somewhere.
Wow.
I was the closest thing to hit.
So when you say you got knocked back 10 feet, did you like mosey back 10 feet?
No,
or did you get like you see in the movies where it's like, bam.
Just like you see in the movies.
Wow.
I'm here in one spot and then All of a sudden, I'm in a different spot.
Okay.
And so I, was jumping around and shook myself off. I went outside, took a minute to catch my breath, came back in, didn't touch the vacuum. My coworkers put that in a room in the back. I picked up a broom, went back to work. That's what I was brought up to do. If it's not broken, if it's not bleeding, get up and keep playing.
I'd want you on my team. So you were electrocuted.
I was electrocuted.
Severely electrocuted.
Severely electrocuted.
Okay.
Within less than an hour, I could no longer pick up the broom anymore. So
it would fall out of your hands?
It didn't fall out of my hands. When you're pulling it back to push up the next broom, I couldn't pick it off the ground anymore. I was just weak, very weak. And so my boss knew what happened, but again, it was kind of a weird thing, so we didn't think anything of it. But I was complaining, and so we called EMS, filled out an incident report, called EMS. They came and checked me out, said my heart rate was really low. Everything else looked okay, but they wanted to take me to the hospital and check me out. Well, I was an athlete. Of course, my heart rate was low. My heart rate was always low, so I said, "No, I'm okay."
Right, but then you changed your mind, and then you ran after them,
I changed my mind, yeah.
Right,
so I called my mom, and she said, no, this is a work accident. And so I ended up chasing them down the driveway, got in the ambulance. They took me to the hospital, and I was immediately put in the cardiac emergency room. They just wanted to run some tests, see if my blood balance levels, everything was okay. And I remember 3 vials being taken. There was apparently 6 vials taken. They were taping me up. I had a seizure and my heart stopped.
Okay, so while they were testing you, while you were on the table, you flatlined.
While I was on the table, I flatlined.
Okay.
I was not feeling good before I walked in, and that just kind of was the nail in the coffin for me. Funny. So the next thing I know, it was my mom and the nurse in there. My mom happened to be downtown, so she came immediately to the hospital. And the next thing I know, there were 20 doctors in the room. And the first thing I heard, once I could reorient myself, because the movies get it right, the lights are spinning, you can't hear a thing.
Wow.
The first thing I heard was, "So, did you see the light?" That was the first thing I heard when my heart restarted.
And what was your answer?
I couldn't speak for about 30 minutes.
Okay.
I was still at that point completely disoriented.
So you could hear.
I could hear, but I couldn't speak.
Okay.
I couldn't communicate.
Could you understand what was going on?
I could, but I wasn't comprehending what was going on. I didn't understand the magnitude of what had just happened.
Okay.
And so they ended up taking me to the cardiac ICU to monitor me for 24 hours.
Okay.
And I spent the next 24 hours in the cardiac ICU. I have a funny story about that. So here's this strapping young athletic 18-year-old kid in the cardiac ICU with all of these sick people getting treatments for whatever they need, ages varying widely. And I hadn't eaten yet at this point during the day. And my mom had left to go get some supplies home for me. It's 10 years ago. I was using an iPod, so I wanted some music. So she went and got my iPod, got some clothes so that I was not in work clothes and had something warm in the hospital. And the nurse said, "Your mom just left. Have her pick up some food. The food here is pretty atrocious." So when my mom came back, she came back with, now I have changed my diets since then, but I'm in the cardiac ICU eating a greasy, hot and ready Little Caesars pizza in the cardiac ICU.
Wow. How'd your cells like that one?
I'm sure they didn't like it at the time, but man, it felt so good in my stomach.
And so give us, you flatlined, you're gone, you get revived or you wake up. And then this led to, over the last decade, this journey that you have been on. There have been a succession of bullets, of lows and frustrations and serious challenges, and another flatline, and some positive things that have happened. Give us the summary of each thing, like in a timeline, and then I'm going to kind of interject, and because I know the story, I want people to get the highlights, and we don't have all day, and we can talk about this for hours. Give us the summary and the timeline of all of these things, and then let's build on some of the things that you learned along the way, because you're here, you're smiling, you're very handsome.
Thank you.
And I'm excited for your future. And we'll talk about your mile and the significance of it towards the end of this. But give us the highlights for now and the lowlights in summary.
So for the next year after this occurrence, I was doing okay. I wasn't doing great. I was not at my 100% by any means, but the doctor said, just give it some time. You'll be okay. Within a year to the week, I couldn't walk up a flight of stairs anymore. Cognitively, I was still doing okay, but physically, I just couldn't do anything. My heart felt as though it was racing 1,000,000 miles a minute. It would go up, it would go down. There's no consistency anywhere. This goes on for a year or so. I have a doctor that thinks he knows what the problem is, so I end up having an attempted ablation. And yes, I say attempted because it did not work.
Okay, so what happened during that?
I went in for surgery. He said it would take about half an hour. And 2.5 hours later, and about 6 times the amount of medications that they would have given my dad, who's twice the size of me, they could not get the cells to misfire the way that they thought they were misfiring. And so it was a failed surgery. And it took me 1.5 years to get back to this place physically that I was when I walked into the surgery.
Okay, so what did they think was going to happen as a result of that procedure?
What they thought was going to happen,
because these are experts in this field, right?
Yes, this was an expert in his field. He thought that there were some cells close to my SA node that were misfiring. He was going to go in. He was going to trigger what was going on with the medications while I was in surgery. He was going to find them. He was going to kill those cells, and it was going to allow my heart to function properly. At the time, we thought it was my heart. It wasn't for another probably 4 to 5 years that we figured out that it was not my heart.
Interesting. Where did you go from there?
So after that doctor kind of wiped his hands and said, I can't help you, go find someone else. I ended up finding another doctor who did a tilt table test on me. Another expert.
Right.
The test is you lie down on a flat table. The lights are dimmed. You're strapped to this table. You cannot move. You cannot speak for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, they slowly, but rather quickly, raise the table up to an almost 90-degree angle. And again, you can't speak, you can't move, and they see how your vital signs look. And after about 30 seconds or so, I said, oh, here I go again, and flatlined again.
So this is time number 2 where you're gone.
Yep.
And then you came back.
Then I came back.
Okay.
Yes.
Talk about that a little bit. Did you realize at the time that you had flatlined and what had happened to you, or was it described to you later, and what was your experience?
It was described to me later. After the first time it happens to you, you know what the feeling is. You can't really describe the feeling, but you know what the feeling is. So I knew it was coming.
Was it scary?
No, it wasn't really scary. There's not a whole lot in life that scares me at this point.
Uh-huh.
I came back the first time, so after the first time, a second time was kind of no big deal. My mom told me, because, again, she was there for the test, she said, you look like an unpainted wax dummy.
Wow. Man, I got chills, and I'm looking at you now, glowing skin. You were 20 years old at the time, if I'm counting years correctly.
I was 20 years old at the time.
20 years old at the time, and did you realize at the time that, holy crap, my life as I know it is over? I got a new life ahead of me, or what were you thinking about your future at that time?
At that time, I didn't think my life was over. I was struggling severely, but I was struggling just in the physical things that I did. So I couldn't go work out. I couldn't play a soccer game anymore. Couldn't go mountain biking with my family, things like that. But otherwise, I was still, for what I thought, living a decent life for a 20-year-old. I was in school. I was doing okay. I was still hanging out with my friends. I wasn't at my peak by any means, but I was still okay at that point. It wasn't until probably about 2015, so about 4 to 5 years later, that everything really started hitting the fan.
Meaning you continued to get worse?
This was a very steady downward spiral. I would get worse, and then I'd plateau, and then I'd get worse and plateau and get worse, and I never got better.
All right, so talk about not necessarily the whole story of each thing that was worse, but give us a bullet list of the things that broke down physically and mentally for you as a result of this severe electrocution.
Mm-hmm. So when I was in school at Life University, when I started the first time, I was not able to walk to class. I was not able to carry my backpack to class. And so for, 1 quarter or 1 week, my brothers carried my backpack, and then they carried me for an entire week.
beautiful family, this family.
Yeah.
How about concentration, cognitive function?
Yeah, my cognitive abilities were not quite there. And again, I thought at this point that I had a heart issue. And so I wasn't sure what was going on, but I wasn't able to concentrate in class. I wasn't able to stay awake. Having a one-on-one conversation with someone was difficult. And if you put me in a noisy environment, it was complete overload on my brain. I could not separate different conversations happening around me. So paying attention to one conversation that I'm having with you, I'm also picking up, half of this one and half of the one that's happening 10 feet away from me with someone else.
So your energy was not able to focus. How about stamina?
Stamina was pretty low. I could only do any particular task for a very small amount of time.
And this caused you to drop out of school.
Yep.
Right?
I ended up dropping out of school with the full intent at this point of starting back up once I figured out my health, because I didn't know what was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to start 3 months after I withdrew, and 3 months turned into 6, turned into 9, turned into about 5 years.
Incredible. And I met Austin at Life University. I am a graduate of there, and I do a lot, give a lot there, serve a lot there. Love the environment, the education, the chiropractors that they're putting out into the world. The undergrad programs are growing and are fantastic. We're excited about that. And I do a lot of the keynote speeches there, like I do for companies and organizations around the world. And I met your family as a result of my involvement at Life University. And, one of the things that there's a vitalistic philosophy that is at the core of the principles and the pillars at Life University, and that we are self-healing, self-regulating. At this point, you're enrolled in this school. You are bought into this vision and concept of self-healing and the body's ability to right itself, adapt. And talk to us about how that understanding or that philosophy, that commitment to that principle as a part of your lifestyle, did it have an effect on keeping you going and moving, finding answers so that your body could adapt and you could be in this place that you're in right now?
Absolutely. Before I was in school, I grew up as a chiropractic. I wasn't a chiro kid by any means, but I was adjusted from a week old. And so I grew up kind of living that lifestyle, not to the degree that I am now by any means. But when I was in school, I had so many people that were just offering to help me. It wasn't pills that I was taking at this point anymore. It was, cut this out of your diet, listen to these podcasts and help you, emotionally and mentally get into a good place to be able to heal. Try some different techniques that might be able to work with your nervous system because it's kind of shot right now.
Yeah. And so now here you are, you went through, talk to us about, now we heard some of the lowlights, flatlining twice, losing your stamina, losing cognitive ability, and then things began to turn around for you. Talk to us about how you started to turn things around, and then we'll talk about the significance of Austin running a mile.
All right. I, at this point, was just living. I was surviving. I wasn't even living. My job was to take care of my family. I was not in school, so I cooked dinner for my family every night for almost 5 years, which was a blessing for them. It was wonderful for me. I know how to cook now. I got to a point where my workman's comp case fell apart. I had lost my insurance because insurance says, you want it? Well, I'm taking it away. If you want it, you have to fight for it. And because of the rarity of my case, there was no leg to stand on in court.
And that's an important point, because a lot of people that are sick, that are injured, that are having a fight with an injury or illness, and they're looking for a second chance and they're expecting somebody else to pay for it. At some point, not for everybody, but at some point, people have to make a decision between living and having somebody else pay for it. Mm-hmm. You made a conscious choice that, all right, they're not paying for it, but I'm not going nowhere. True or not true?
Very true.
Yeah.
Once I realized that there was no sense of time frame for me getting help from someone else, I decided that it was time for me to take my life in my own hands. At that point, this was last year, I realized that I had lost 9 years of the best years of my life that I was never going to get back.
Did you ever feel like a victim because, hey, you were cut off, this was a freak accident, you didn't ask for this, then you go through all these tragedies, traumas, and and then they take benefits away from you. So now you got to finance your own well-being and finding your life back. Did you ever feel like a victim? And your answer really just inspired me.
So you kind of hit on a good point there. It was a freak accident. And because it was a freak accident, I was never mad at anybody. There was never anyone to be mad at. And so for that reason, I never felt like a victim. But last year, I was done being the victim.
So important and valuable to understand that, because I think a lot of people, what gets in the way of healing is the concept of being a victim, being mad at the world, your energy. We've done podcasts on energy. We'll do more on energy. And you only have a limited amount of energy, so you can channel it in whatever direction that you want. I believe that in many ways you're here today because you chose to, number one, refocus your energy on healing and health versus being angry or being a victim. And now you go down this path and you start to get results and you start to heal. Talk about that.
So I last June, I decided that enough was enough. It was time to get my life back.
By the way, that wasn't like a slurring of the words. His brain is okay now.
My brain's good. I was trying to remember.
June or July?
Yeah,
was it June?
Couldn't remember. Couldn't remember what month it was. So in June, I decided it was time to get my life back, and the only person that was going to help me was me. I had a support system that was fantastic, but it was up to me to get better, not up to them to get me better. And after growing up an athlete and losing all of my physical abilities, in my head I was still an athlete, but my body didn't show it. I decided that the way that I was going to get better and prove that I was better than myself was to go out and run a mile. And I gave myself 1 year to complete this goal. I started on July 9th of 2018, July 9th of 2018 on this goal.
And running a mile before was no big deal. Like you said, you ran track.
Oh, I ran track. I played soccer. I did track and soccer at the same time.
Wow. Okay. So you want to run a mile. So that's this is part of getting your life back in a very important way for you, I think, spiritually.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so when I started this training, can't even say it was running, all I could do when I started was I would walk half a mile 3 days a week. This is all of the energy I could muster up. It would take the rest of the days just to recover from that. And I would walk at about a 40-minute mile pace. So it was incredibly slow, but that is the most that I could possibly do. And let me tell you, having a goal set out a year from then of running a mile like I could when I was in high school seemed unfathomable. It was completely out of reach mentally, but I knew that I just needed to take baby steps to get there, and baby steps were going to be the only way that I was going to get there.
Good for you. And so talk about the journey.
So the journey was, I started walking half a mile 3 days a week and just slowly started adding in days of the week until I was doing 6 days a week of training. I was still at this 40-minute, only half mile at a time. And then I would just add in a little bit of distance at a time until I was eventually about 2 months later able to do, it was about 3 months later, I was able to do a mile to a mile and a half, 6 days a week. Again, very slow, but I was able to do that. And then I slowly just started very incrementally. I did this on a track so that I could map it out because they have 50-yard sections all marked down on the track, is that I would just slowly start adding in speed and speed and speed until I was able to, about 6 months later, start jogging. Just a little bit, just 50 yards. That's all I could do.
And for a lot of people getting second chances, or people that want to eliminate their weight or feel that athlete come back in their body, it's still in there. You haven't lost it. Maybe you've got it surrounded and padded. Maybe you've lost some health. You had some challenges. But as we say in the 100-year lifestyle, change comes one choice at a time. Think progress, not perfection. And have a vision, long-term vision in mind with your ideal 100-year lifestyle in mind. And so you had your eye on this prize. You wanted to get there. It was a long-term goal within a year, but also to set the stage for the rest of your life. And so here you are, you're making this journey. 3 months goes by, 6 months goes by. Talk about your progress, and then talk about the mile.
So I'm jogging. I'm finally jogging. And then around, I think it was April of 2019, I started running. And let me tell you, that first day of running, I only ran for 50 yards, but man, that felt great. That felt really, really good. I had not experienced the thrill of running in almost 10 years at that point. And I kept going at it. It did not matter. Rain, snow, sleet, sunshine, blazing hot temperatures. I did my training every day. I didn't skip a day. And if I had to skip a day because I pulled a muscle, I did it the next day. So I started doing this. And the last 2 months or so, I got plagued with some injuries, admittedly. I was pushing my body hard training for this.
But you didn't just want to do a mile. You wanted to do a mile in 5 minutes.
So when I was an athlete in high school, I could do a sub 5-minute mile. And so my goal from the beginning was to be able to be that athlete that I was in high school, because the last time that I could run a mile was a sub 5-minute mile. And so that was my goal. That's what I was working towards. And I started at a 40-minute mile. And
that day came.
That day came, and the track temperatures were very hot.
Yeah, it was 90 some odd degrees. I was there. Lisa was there taking pictures. You were surrounded by your family, all your brothers, your mom and dad, lots of friends. It was at the upper track at Life University.
Yes.
And so were you nervous?
I was very, I don't want to say I was nervous, but I was very anxious. This was a very big day for me. It was the 10-year anniversary of my accident. I went out and I started running, and the track temperatures, they were hot. It was 95 degrees out, and then add the track temperatures on top of that. So it was probably over 100 degrees out there. And I had my brother, who thankfully helped pace me, and he kept me going, because there was a few times during that mile that I was just about ready to be done.
And you had a lot of people across the finish line behind you.
Yes.
But not everybody ran the whole way. Come on,
No.
you gotta give it up a little bit.
No, not everyone did the whole thing. Some people couldn't do it, and that was totally fine, but they wanted to support me and run this mile with me.
It was beautiful. What was it like crossing the finish line?
Crossing the finish line was, I don't have words for it.
I thought you won the Olympic medal.
It felt like it. I gave that everything I had. I'm surprised I didn't fall over when I broke that tape at the finish line. I gave it my all, and I was happy with how it turned out. I was very happy with how it turned out.
Well, you should be, and you made a difference for all of us that day. I think you taught all of us, and a lot of people there didn't know your whole story, and then you shared a lot of your story afterwards as you everybody had a bottle of champagne that you so generously distributed, and it was special because you're obviously a very likable guy. It's obvious that you're not playing the victim, and that you are looking forward to not only being a chiropractor, but making the biggest difference that you possibly can for as many people as possible. And a couple of things. First thing is I know chiropractic care has been a big part of your journey. Mm-hmm. And over the course of your whole life and through this injury, a lot of people don't realize there are a lot of different styles of chiropractic care. There's, very physical manual adjusting. There's upper cervical, brainstem specific type adjusting. There's extremity adjusting. There's all kinds of equipment that like activators and other types of instruments that can help adjust the spine and nervous system. And along the way, because of your injury, you utilized a lot of different types of care. How valuable was it, do you think, for you to keep your nervous system, your spine aligned, and your nervous system healthy in that way, and to be able to have access to those different styles?
Oh, it was huge in my healing process. Without the chiropractic care that I received, I wouldn't have been able to heal as well as I did, fast as I did, as efficiently as I did. There were some days that I needed a big adjustment because those bones needed to move, and there was other days that I needed an adjustment, but my nervous system could not handle that big physical adjustment. So it was very much tonal. It was very low force. It was, I was using activators or having something else done.
Yeah, and I think that's important for people to understand, because some people will say that, I tried a chiropractor one time and it worked or it didn't work. And the reality of it is as your body changes, as your life changes, it is always valuable to have a healthy, balanced spine and nervous system, always. And there are different styles that are available for you that are worth trying during different stages of your life. And it may be that the chiropractor that you're using, which everybody should have a chiropractor as a primary care provider, in my opinion, but understanding that doctor, understanding how to adapt to how your body's growing and changing is such an important part of your growth and development when you're young and as you age, as your kids go through every stage of life. And so I love that that you were able to utilize it that way. And you could see your posture, how you're sitting up. There's a YouTube of this too, by the way. So that it's obviously made a big difference for you. And then the other piece that I think is important, you were wearing the 100-100 workout shirt that so many people wear that stands for 100% for 100 years, which is our goal as we transform the health and longevity consciousness of this planet with this vision of the 100-year lifestyle. With those injuries, what does 100% for 100 years mean to you today?
So 100% for 100 years today means me living out my 100%, because my 100% is not your 100%, is not my neighbor's 100%, but it's my 100%. And I want to live my 100% for as many years as I have left on this planet.
Yeah, and you have a grandma that you said was a grandmother that...
my great aunt was 103.
Yeah, there you go. So like many people, you have that longevity in your family. Why not make all of those years great years? Well, you look amazing.
Thank you.
You're so inspiring to all of us. Those of you that are listening that are in the middle of a second chance, afraid that you might be headed for a breakdown and you want to get your life on track, you want to make the most of your life. This young man, so immature to be injured at that time period, and now here he is, 28 years old, with so much wisdom that is helping all of us. Any closing thoughts, my young friend?
If you have any injuries, if you have any family members with injuries or setbacks or hurdles in their life, baby steps and determination will get you way farther than you ever thought that you could possibly get.
With a long-term vision.
With a long-term vision
in mind. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on the 100-Year Lifestyle Podcast. We are so grateful for you. Thanks for sharing it with your family and friends. Please visit all of our social media pages. Share this episode with the people in your life who you love and care about, or you want to see make the most of their second chance or even their first chance. Baby steps with a long-term vision. Well said, young man. Thanks, everybody. Until next time, Dr. Plasker with soon to be Dr. Austin Surmont one day.
One day.
Signing off right now.
Thank you so much for joining us on the 100-Year Lifestyle Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have topics that you want us to cover, people you want us to interview, maybe you have some stories that you want to share, stories of yourself, loved ones, people in your life, we would love to hear from you and share your story. Please email us at my100@100yearlifestyle.com. And remember, nobody wants to get to 100 or even 50, 60, or 70 for that matter, crippled, broke, and alone. So please share the 100-Year Lifestyle, all of our podcasts, social media pages, website, with your family, friends, and coworkers so they can take this journey with you. And until next time, adjust your lifestyle. Live your best life today and every day on the road to a sensational century.